Hey, welcome back. Made a Ned rig. We'll get a little bit more of a look at that in just a second and how I made it, including the carving, the pouring the mold, the pouring the soft plastics, and the attempt to fish it out here in the cold. So let's see what this Ned rig looks like on this episode of You know, I'm kind of tired of these like normal, boring old Ned worms. I want to create something new today out of this little dowel rod. Let's make our own Ned worm, but let's make them like crazy, like a creature, like a deadly Nedley or a Ned Dead Redemption. Who knows? But we can use these little eyes to put texture on it. I don't know. Once we carve it, we'll make a mold with this high strength 3 by Alumilite, and then we'll pour some soft plastics. So let's get started. Let's head on over to the bandsaw. Awesome cinematography, Paul. Great shot of your knuckles. Anyways, we'll be done with this in just a second. Let's just cut this down to size, and then we will take it and put it in the drill press, which today I'm going to use as a kind of a vertical lathe. Once we get our little dowel rod secured in there, we're going to go ahead and use this saw, and we're going to cut little segments. They don't have to be perfect. This is not going to be a perfect looking lure. He's going to be like a monster, like a creature. And then we'll just go ahead and refine these segments a little bit and then do some sanding. Hey, I actually don't mind this sanding at all. I just got to kind of hold the paper there and the machine does all the work for me. So I want to round out those sharp edges on the end there, and then we'll move on. Okay, what are we working with? We have this Ned hook, and the head seems to fit perfectly on there, and I'm just going to use this Dremel tool and kind of add some more texture to our wood. Again, awesome cinematography. I mean, that's a great blurry shot. The head I'm using is just something I found in my son's Lego collection. So after thinking on it, I made it a little too short, so I just created a second one using the same techniques and just made it a little taller, a little longer. Alright, so I'm going to secure that head onto the wood with a little bit of modeling clay and clear out the refuse. And then I'm going to stick on some eyes. These eyes, when we do our soft plastic pour, are just going to be bumps on the Ned. You'll probably see that on other Ned worms. I just like the dynamics, the texture to it all. We'll hold those still with a little bit of super glue, and then I'll take some ends of these little like toothpick type sticks and we'll make some hands, and then we'll super glue some balls there on the end so that the hands have a little bit of wobble when they're underwater. You can see I also added a nose, and I'm going to use the Dremel tool to do a little bit more detail work. I'm going to route out a mouth and perhaps some eye holes. You know, speaking of my son's Lego collection, let's use these Legos to build a base for our mold. And that only took a few minutes. Here you go. Nothing complicated about that. That's going to do just fine. And we're going to use some modeling clay, and we're going to add that to the bottom of this base, and you'll see why in just a second. So I'm going to smush that all in there, make sure it's real nice and tight, and then I'm going to burrow out a little cavity to stick our little Ned Dead Redemption into. Put a little mold release so the clay doesn't stick all over him, and then once he's in there, we'll scooch up the clay until he's nice and covered. And now I'm going to add that little section where we're going to be putting our injector for the soft plastic, and I'm also going to add these little vents. These sticks will be vent holes. so that when you use the injection, it'll work. Now we're going to burrow out some holes so that the mold will stay in place. And we're going to use that silicone mold release to get everything nice and lubricated so that we can begin pouring our Alumilite and make the first half of our mold, making sure that mold releases all over everything. Now for making our mold with Alumilite, we're going to do it by weight using this scale. We want a 10-to-1 mix ratio. So I'm going to measure out 10 parts of base to 1 part catalyst by weight. When you're mixing any type of product that has a base and a catalyst, you really want to get your mixture to be as close as possible to the manufacturer's recommended ratio, or it could take weeks to a month to dry or not work at all. I've used this stuff before, and this particular batch was very slow pouring. I don't know if it was a retooled formula or if it's the weather outside, but it just didn't pour like my previous ones. It still worked, but it just didn't pour right. But I did it real slow to avoid bubbles, and then we waited overnight. I would say 24 hours. And then we take our clay off to reveal the first half of our mold. So now we're looking at the back side of our Ned rig. And I'm just going to clean that up and put on some more silicone release spray and then pour the second half of our mold. And then wait another 24 hours. Okay, let's see what we got. Come here, come over by the camera, show us what we got. Okay, thanks for that. All right, moving on. Let's take our mold apart and see what we got. And it seems to be dry, seems to be thick, and I think this is gonna work. So let's go ahead and start getting our soft plastics ready. The soft plastics that I'm gonna use are just spent, used up old lures that I like to recycle instead of throwing away. I have a dedicated microwave that I only use for soft plastics. I don't want any of my family's food to use the same machine. I'm gonna microwave that for a couple minutes until we get about 325 degrees Fahrenheit is what I found to be a good temperature for pouring these. So I'll mix it up and we'll use our laser thermometer to check our temperature, and it looks like we're perfect. So let's go ahead and get the injector and pour it in our mold. So since this only makes one lure at a time, I also brought out my famous Scentsy fish grub mold so I can make those two at the same time. I mean, you might as well kill two birds with one stone, right? You know, when you melt all those lures together of all those different colors, I always get that classic green pumpkin color. Okay, after I let it dry, I removed it, and I'll show it to you in just a second. I wanted to make a couple more of these to make sure I got good versions. I need to clean up the mold a little bit and warm it up. The Scentsy fish grubs look great. Look at all those different sparkles. Those look perfect. And I made a swim bait, a carved one a couple years ago, and also made a mold for that. So I'll go ahead and pour some of those, and we are finished. There it is. There's our Ned. And check it out with the lights. Look at his little fins. That is cool. And this is how he performs underwater. He stands right up in the air. Bloop, bloop. I'm super happy with this. I think he is going to slay. I love the hands. It's almost like they're helping him balance to stay up. And they get a little wobble. I like that. They'll even have a little bit more action on them in a current. But this is going to be perfect, so all we have to do now is go catch a fish. Well, we got a group of wild turkeys. I'm sorry, a gang of turkeys is what I believe is the correct nomenclature for a group of turkeys. it's certifiable. It's certified. Although it's not a big fish, it is a fish. The Ned rig has caught it. All right. Wasn't easy, but it worked. It worked. All right. All right, let's get her back. Ned dead redemption.
Hey, thank you for watching my husband's fishing channel. Maybe someday he'll let me fish with him. If you've stuck around this long, write the word tower in the description below. Check us out under all the social media pages. And subscribe, hit that bell, comment down below. We will be back in 1 week. You've been watching Cincy Fish Dudes.